Charter schools are everywhere in the state of Minnesota, and when they are brought up in conversations about education, people often have strong reactions to them. Today we continue our series on charter schools. Reporter Meredith Hackler joins us now with more. Meredith?
Shannon, in 1991, Minnesota was at the forefront of the nation as lawmakers approved the first charter school law in the country. Today, there are more than 150 charter schools across the state, educating around 60,000 students. Ever since the schools were created, they've become a topic that many educators have strong opinions on.
Do you remember anybody in history class who was hailed as Pater Patriae?
Charter schools and education have always been a very dividing topic.
I personally think that the charter school process in Minnesota is out of control.
One of the best things that I've heard about charter schools is when you've seen one charter school, you've seen one charter school.
Joe Nathan would know. He helped write the nation's first charter public school law and has worked with governors in more than 25 states to help with similar legislation.
Number one is D.
They have to teach to the same standards, they have to take the same statewide tests, and they may not be religious schools, period. And there was one school that was accused, and investigation found that it was promoting religion, and it was closed down.
And the closure of charter schools is an issue that educators like Peter Eckhoff see as an issue.
If you have a charter that fails financially, those students still have the right to a full, robust education, and so they, of course, matriculate back into the public school systems where they are coming in with a less robust background and adding to the burdens of the system without all the financial resources being attached at the same time.
What Eckhoff means by this is that the funding for the student was originally given to the charter school, but when the student is reintroduced to the public school system after a charter school closes, that funding doesn't immediately follow them.
And I think that what it does is it continues to siphon our limited resources as a state into very pointed and for-profit systems. We are seeing more and more of our public school systems struggling to meet the needs of all of the students that come through their door with the siphoning of those resources.
So how are charter schools funded anyway?
Charter schools in Minnesota are public schools. They are funded by state taxes, but they aren't eligible for local property taxes, so they get somewhat less than the local district schools, but they are funded by taxpayers just as traditional district schools are.
And the way they're funded is something that many educators have a problem with.
Obviously, you don't have to think long nor hard to see that as you lose hundreds of students and the funding that goes with it, it takes away resources that may be there for us to have a more robust or a deeper opportunity for our students in terms of some of the offerings that we might be able to grant.
Since the establishment of charter schools, enrollment in public schools has dropped, meaning funding for those public schools has changed. According to the Minnesota Department of Education, in 1992, public school districts across the state had over 831,000 students. Now they have around 805,000 students. While public schools find this to be negative, Nathan feels the addition of charter schools to education has helped make the education system in Minnesota better.
Minnesota ranks among the very best education systems in the world on international exams.
Since charter schools were created, the state has gone toe-to-toe with countries like Finland on international exams.
Minnesota students who are more racially diverse than Finnish students actually do better on several international exams than Finland, which has been frequently touted as one of the very top countries. So I think there's a lot to be proud of.
However, educators like Eckhoff say that charter schools oftentimes lack a diversity of people, since many of them are culturally focused. He also feels they lack a diverse curriculum.
The options that my children had growing up in the public school system, the diversity of courses that they had available to them was unprecedented as we compared it to even the private schools that had massive tuition rates in order for them to attend.
While charter schools have their pros and cons, both sides agree that you should do your research before sending your child to either. Another important stat to mention is that since charter schools were established, graduation rates have continued to rise across the board, with students of color's rates increasing the most. While experts say charter schools aren't the only reason for that happening, they say it's definitely a factor. Now, tomorrow on CCX News, we'll look at a charter school right here in the northwest suburbs and hear from parents as well as students on why they chose a charter school education over a traditional district one. Shannon?
All right, thank you, Meredith.